Western script, Eastern reality. This is the algorithm. Rewrite the rules. January 2026. For Kim Jong Un, the world had become unrecognizable. The news of US strikes on Tehran and Caracas hit him like two sledgehammers to the skull. This wasn't just the fall of two dictatorial regimes. It was the total severing of the anti-American alliance's energy lifeblood. North Korea's tanks needed Iranian oil. North Korean bellies needed the fertilizer once traded for cheap Venezuelan crude.
Putin is a fool. In Vladivostok, he bragged that his Arctic route led to eternity. And now? American carriers are in the Persian Gulf watching his pipelines get blown to scrap. Maduro has fled. Khomeini's successor is dead in his office. Now, the bastards in Washington have their hands directly on my throat.
Chairman, the situation is worse than anticipated. With Iran and Venezuela now under U.S. energy trusteeship, global oil prices have stabilized, but our friendship price supply lines on the black market are gone. Most lethally, Putin is now attempting to hike the price for the Far East military technology he promised us. He wants to take the microprocessors meant for us to patch up his own leaking war machine.
Putin wants to blackmail me? He forgets who supplied those shells to the Ukrainian front. Old, yes, but they still kill. He's like a bear that fell into an ice hole. He's trying to grab my leg to climb out, and he doesn't care if he drags me down with him.
Half an hour after the trilateral video conference ended, the encrypted channels between Pyongyang, Moscow, and Beijing were sparked with friction. The ironclad alliance was corroding into a primitive, predatory struggle in the face of energy scarcity.
We just received a secret report from Zhongnanhai. Xi Jinping has begun cutting grain aid to us, using internal supply chain adjustments as an excuse. But we know the truth. He wants to force us to hand over the technical parameters for the Russian Arctic underwater sensors. He wants to bypass us and deal directly with Putin's Far East military district.
Xi wants to toss me aside like scrap paper. He thinks once he controls Russia's energy, he can negotiate with the Americans. He wants North Korea to be the sacrificial lamb of the century. Venezuela's collapse taught me one thing. When the big ship sinks, the first ones pushed overboard are always the small partners with the hardest tempers.
Therefore, we must carve the last piece of meat off Putin before he collapses completely. We cannot just use the Vladivostok naval port. We must actually control it. If Putin dares to cut our tech, we cut the Far East's connection to Moscow. We must let Xi know that if North Korea goes hungry, the entire Far East becomes a sea of fire.
Contact the corrupt officers in Putin's Far East military district. Tell them Moscow can no longer pay their salaries, but I still have gold bars laundered from the black market. I want the control codes for the Arctic route, piece by piece. If Xi wants to play algorithmic harvesting, I'll play geopolitical kidnapping. I will make these two big brothers understand. North Korea is not a pawn. We are the dynamite on the board.
The fall of Venezuela and Iran plunged North Korea into an unprecedented survival panic. Without Iranian oil transfers, the North Korean Air Force was practically grounded. Without Venezuelan money laundering channels, Pyongyang's elite began to question Kim's authority.
The Americans are smug right now. They think that by grabbing the oil, they've grabbed the world. But they forget, before a madman starves to death, he is capable of anything. Putin wants to sell me out for a non-expansion deal with the US. Xi wants to sell Putin out for global financial hegemony. Out of the three of us, only I have no path of retreat.
Chairman, this is our opportunity. Putin and Xi's mutual distrust has reached a peak. Putin fears Xi will annex the Far East. Xi fears Putin will blow up the Arctic. We are the balancing point. If we create a small accident in Vladivostok, make Xi think it was the Americans and make Putin think it was Xi.
Exactly! Let those two old beasts tear each other apart on the Arctic ice. We will stand by, take the scraps of meat that fall off them, and survive.
Putin's throne in Moscow was burning hot. but his soldiers in the Far East were shivering. After the collapse of heavy oil supplies from Venezuela, the Russian Pacific Fleet's patrol frequency plummeted by 60%. Kim Jong Un saw the opening.
Inside are pickup vouchers for 200,000 tons of grain and 5,000 tons of light crude, sourced from African underground routes. These goods will never pass through Pyongyang's official accounts. They go straight to your military district's private warehouses. The salaries Moscow can't pay, our committee will pay for Putin.
Tell him my patience is limited. I don't just want technical copies. I want the control codes for the Arctic sonar matrix, the system that locks onto US nuclear subs. Putin can't protect these assets anymore. American sonar is practically knocking on his front door. Only by delegating control to North Korea will the Americans hesitate, because they know I will actually pull the trigger.
This was a dangerous offside trade. Kim was attempting to bypass the supreme decision-making level in Moscow to corrupt Russia's border guardians directly. He knew that in the face of hunger, loyalty was the cheapest commodity in the Far East.
Chairman, something is wrong. The general's hands were shaking when he took the vouchers. He mentioned that on his way to the meeting, he received a signal from the port of Dalian. The Chinese demanded an explanation as to why the Far East military district's fuel reserves were fluctuating without Moscow's authorization.
Xi Jinping! He wants to manage the fuel gauges in Vladivostok now? Is he telling me that if I want to carve meat off Putin, I must go through his slaughterhouse first? The surveillance net he's draped over this region is already denser than the American satellites.
Xi's algorithmic hunt isn't just for the Americans, it's for us. He uses our reliance on grain to plant sensors on every one of our cargo ships. The moment we make private contact with the Russians, the alarms go off in Beijing. He wants us to tear at each other like dogs, but he wants to be the one holding the leash.
He wants to hold the leash? I'll bite his hand off. Go tell that Russian general that Xi will soon have Putin purge him under the guise of anti-corruption. His only survival is to defect to me now, with the source codes of that sonar matrix. I want Putin to lose his eyes in the Far East, and I want Xi to lose his surveillance power over these waters.
The fall of Venezuela and Iran had shattered what little trust remained among global autocrats. In Kim's eyes, Xi was no longer the big brother, but a liquidator waiting to swallow North Korean assets. And Putin was an empty shell, holding a nuclear button he was too afraid to press.
The Americans took Iran's gas. Xi wants to take Russia's life. And me? I am caught in the middle. If I don't want to be a stepping stone, I must become the fuse of this powder keg. Strategist, prep the mobile launchers for the Hwasong 18s. If Xi dares to cut my final grain route, I'll turn Vladivostok and his port of Dalian into dead zones. If we don't eat, no one survives to see next spring.
Chairman, this will completely enrage both sides.
I've been hungry for 3 days, strategist. Do you think I still care about their anger? I want survival, not their permission. Make the Russian general understand. If he doesn't cooperate, he won't even make it to a Moscow prison. I'll send him to meet Maduro right now.
The island of power was shrinking. Kim Jong Un realized that as the lights of Venezuela and Iran flickered out, he had to keep warm by consuming his own kind in a world of total darkness. The fall of Venezuela and Iran turned the global autocratic camp into a zero-sum game. Kim Jong Un understood that if he didn't break the fragile surveillance-based balance between China and Russia, North Korea would be consumed in silence.
Chairman, the Special Ops team has arrived. They are carrying Mark 48 torpedo fragments sourced from the black market and our own modified EMP pulses. Once these detonate near the Chinese supply ships, Xi's algorithms will immediately categorize this as a desperate preemptive strike by the Russian military.
And Putin? Has his general moved?
The Russian general has been backed into a corner. He just issued orders to raise the defense readiness of his units, citing unidentified underwater infiltration. Now, all it takes is a single spark for the waters between Dalian and Vladivostok to turn into hell.
At 3:15 a.m., a muffled explosion tore through the freezing water. It wasn't nuclear, yet it was more destructive. The automated monitoring network Xi had deployed off Dalian was instantly shattered by a powerful pulse signal. The rupture of the data link triggered Beijing's most sensitive, automated counter-response protocols.
Xi Jinping trusts his digital systems too much. He thinks he can control everything with algorithms, not realizing that when an algorithm faces madness, it only reaches one conclusion: war. Right now, the coastal batteries in Dalian should be locked onto Russian supply vessels.
Report, Chairman. Beijing's reaction is faster than expected. Xi didn't fire directly, but he has severed all satellite data and navigation signals flowing to Vladivostok. The Russian fleet is now blind. Putin's general thinks we betrayed him and is preparing to launch missiles at our position.
Let him fire! The moment his missiles cross the border, Xi can no longer maintain the illusion of a peaceful acquisition. I want these two big brothers to bleed at the doorstep of the Arctic. Only when they start fighting will the grain trains from Beijing start running again to appease me.
The flames on the sea reflected in Kim's eyes. While the false flag didn't ignite a total war, it completely incinerated the last shred of understanding between China and Russia. Xi discovered his prized surveillance net had been torn open by low-tech crime, while Putin realized his military authority in the Far East was spiraling out of control.
Strategist, tell Xi that an armed rebellion has occurred in Vladivostok. Tell him North Korea is willing to send troops to help stabilize the situation, but only if he restores all energy supplies immediately. Simultaneously, tell Putin that if he doesn't want Vladivostok to become a Chinese province, he must transfer the ownership of that sonar matrix to Pyongyang right now.
Chairman, we are walking a tightrope. If both sides calm down, we will be the first ones they liquidate.
Calm down? Venezuela is gone. Iran is gone. There is no room for calm in this world anymore. They are now like two beasts staring at each other in a dark room, and I am the only one holding the lighter. As long as the fire doesn't go out, they have to listen to me.
In the winter of 2026, Kim Jong Un used primitive violence and deception to carve out a gray zone of survival between two superpowers. He knew he might not live to see next spring, but on this desperate night, he was the only true player on this island of power. This concludes Episode 3, the Kim Jong Un chapter. When empires play with algorithms and acquisitions, a cornered beast uses blood and lies to drag the entire board into chaos. Like this video to see how this geopolitical kidnapping ends. Subscribe for Episode 4, The Washington Perspective, where we reveal how the US exploits this internal chaos for the final kill. Share this with your friends who love hardcore political strategy. Leave a comment. Do you think Kim's gamble will pay off, or will he burn himself in the process? See you in the next episode.